Hey everybody, welcome back to Durbins Bourbon. I'm Joe. As you can see, there's no Josh. This video was kind of requested. I've had a few subscribers over time ask about redoing my What's in the Bar video. I did one several years ago. It's probably been 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago of What's in the Bar. Because everybody I know as a YouTuber, when I look at other bourbon or other whiskey shows, I'm always scrolling through the bar looking at what's up there. What kind of stuff do they have that I don't have? What kind of stuff do they have that I have? Where's the similarities? Do they have a lot of Irish? Do they have a lot of Scotch? How about bourbons? Mostly Kentucky. Do they have bourbons from all over? Do they have any Japanese whiskeys? So I figured I'd give you all a little heads up on what's currently in the bar. My current bottle count is still about the same as last time. I think last time I was between 200 and 300 bottles. I'm still in that ballpark somewhere, give or take. I didn't do a count this morning, but there is quite a few. I do have some duplicates of the bourbons that I really enjoy. As you can see, I've got Blanton's sitting here in the front, and that is my trusty dog, Rye, deciding to bark at something. Who knows? A noise, a leaf, who knows? But she is the protector of the house. So I've got the Blantons here just to block the microphone, and it is one of my bourbons I have in the bar. You can see up behind me, there's some that are off camera that I'll talk about. I have Henry McKenna. They're actually one up here, but if you're looking at the top shelf, typically the way I organize my bar, my top shelf is generally like it sounds, a top shelf. Your Van Winkles, your Buffalo Trace Antique Collections, your single barrels, things like that. Kind of tough to get. I'm not going to pour them a whole lot, but I am going to pour them and enjoy them from time to time. Today I'm having, currently as I film this, a blackberry bourbon cocktail. I just made a video, so y'all are going to see that. Probably you'll see it before this, but I haven't edited yet, so we'll see how they turn out. It turned out actually fantastic, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'll wet my whistle a little bit before I begin. So let's go on the top shelf up here. We'll go from the top corner. I have Calumet Farms. That's a 12-year. It's pretty decent. Josh has a lot of the other Calumet Farms. There's a 14-year, I think, or a 15. There's some higher age stuff in Calumet Farms, and you're going to pay a premium for those too. We are in a liquor control state, so everything we buy, we get it, luckily, at suggested retail. Yes, even the Pappies, if you're lucky enough to win them in our state's lottery. It's been several years since we have won any of the Van Winkles. My wife this year did win a Buffalo Trace Antique Collection 17-year Eagle Rare, which is amazing, and y'all have seen the review of that. So I've got Calumet Farms, I have Woodford Reserve, and I have several iterations of the Woodford Reserve. I have a wheat, which I got at the distillery at Woodford back in Kentucky. Josh and I, we went on our vacation back there and we hit the Bourbon Trail. I bought the wheated version. I have the regular Woodford version, and I have the Woodford Double Oaked. Amazing products across the board. The Double Oaked is amazing. Think of Woodford Reserve, but just think of it kicked up a notch with a little more oak, a little more character, a little more depth, a little more vanilla. So it is a fantastic bourbon just to sip neat. I've got Henry McKenna, Elijah Craig 18s. I have an old bottle that I paid $53 for years ago. It's about half done, maybe 3/4 of the way empty. I did pick up another one. I didn't pay $53 or $58 for it. I think I paid $130 or something like that. You're going to pay a lot more. So it was a Dusty I found on the top shelf. No one was buying it at $50. So I'm like, I'll buy it. And I still have it. Stag Junior. That's always one that used to be readily available. It's getting tougher to get. We're moving into the center area up here in the top, if y'all can see. Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, William LaRue Weller, that's a couple years old. Behind it is, I have some aged 12 year, which is, what is that one? It is Rebel Yell single barrel. It's a pretty decent bourbon. Right next to the William LaRue Weller is Old Rip 10 year. It's almost gone. Very sad. I'm hoping to get another one sometime. Next to that is our Van Winkle 12. It's a freshly opened bottle. I did have two. I finished the other one, opened this one for a momentous occasion, paying off our house. So I opened it. It was well worth it. It's a great bourbon. Next to that's the Old Pappy 23. It's a good whiskey as well. A little over oaked. Behind those, Kentucky Owl. The Kentucky Owl bourbon whiskey, confiscated. That's up there. That's a decent one. That's coming in around 130, 140 bucks. Here is another William LaRue Weller that I haven't opened it yet because I'm still drinking this one. So don't be hating on me. I will open it when this one's gone. That one gets open because bourbon's meant to be drank. It ain't meant to be collected. Next to that is a George T. Stagg. I swapped another YouTuber. We swapped bottles. I had multiple William LaRue's. He had multiple Staggs. We shipped them across country back and forth so that he could have something he had never been able to acquire and I could get something I could never acquire. And that's the way the bourbon community works. We don't know each other than through our YouTube personalities. So, but it's just such a tight-knit group and very trustworthy. So it was $100 bottles of bourbon. Just, I'll swap you, and we swapped them right across, back and forth. Eagle Rare, that's the one my amazing wife won in our lottery, which she gave it to me. Excuse me, for Valentine's Day, no less. Amazing score. I love her very much. That was a good win. 17 year, it's a great bourbon. Behind it and next to it are the regular standard iterations of Eagle Rare. Very good bourbons. I would recommend them if you can get them at $38.95. You cannot beat that bourbon for quality. Next to that's going to be Elmer T. Lee, Russell's Reserve Single Barrel. That's a great bourbon. Good proof point, 110 proof. It just blends well. Their mash bill's a kind of a high rye mash bill. That's a great solid bourbon. If you can get it, grab it. Next to that is an Wild Turkey 101. Why is it at the top shelf? Because it's signed by Jimmy Russell. I got the chance to meet him when my wife and I went back to Kentucky, looking around, looking at property and stuff like that. Got to meet the man, the myth, the man, and the legend. Got to sign a bottle for me and Josh. I brought him. Of course, I'm going to get Josh a bottle and have him sign it. And he signed a plaque for me as well. And that was in 2021. It was amazing. It was an amazing moment in time. Next to that sign, behind it is Kentucky Spirit. Then way back in the back buried is Buffalo Trace. It's a special single oak project. They did a whole iteration of single oak projects where they use different staves, different trees from different areas, and still oak and everything, but where it came from and everything, kind of that terroir kind of thing for like your wines and stuff. There's that precious Jimmy Russell signed bottle. Next to this is E.H. Taylor. I have a small batch, and I also have next to that the single barrel. There's two more bottles behind them. If you find them, I would recommend grabbing them. They're hard to get. Ours is just kind of a Easter egg. You walk in, look on the specialty shelf. If they're there, good on you, grab it. Suggested retail, I think, is 70, 80 bucks in that ballpark. Then at the very end of the bar, the camera can't quite see that far up in there. You'll get a glimpse of some of it, I think. 1792s. I have most of the iterations of 1792. That's a great little distillery. They're not little, they're very big. Had a great time there. Their products are good. I've got the sweet wheat, the small batch, the bottle and bond, the full proof, the 12 year. My buddy Dave gave me the bottle of 12 year. I swapped him with a bottle of McCarthy's Oregon single malt whiskey. He likes Scotch kind of flavors, and this is an American made whiskey that tastes like a Scotch. We'll talk about it here in just a second. And then I have 1792 Ridgemont Reserve. They don't make it anymore. There was some litigation issues with the name Ridgemont Reserve from Woodford Reserve. So 1792 changed the name, and it's basically the small batch, but that iteration came in a really unique bottle. It was a burlap top, wood top stopper. The flavor profile on this is amazing. It is aged 8 years, so it's an 8-year. It has an age statement. They discontinued this and moved on to the small batch, I think somewhere around 2011 or 12. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But I snatched up. Josh and I used to buy these all the time because they were just such a solid bourbon. And I honestly believe that this year, this last batches that they made, they have a superior flavor to the small batch that's produced now. I don't know what it is, the yeast component, whatever it is. It was just a very exquisite whiskey. I found a liter at a Total Wine store in a neighboring state. I grabbed it. If they would have had 3 or 4 liters, I would have bought them all because it is one of my favorites and really hard to get now. This one's full because I topped the liter off into it, so that way there's no oxidation going on in an open bottle. Another tip for y'all out there, that if you have a whiskey collection, about every couple months you should pull your bottles down, dust them off, clean them and stuff, and then tip them upside down and let that liquor hit the cork and wet it a little bit. Because if you don't, they'll dry out and you'll start getting oxidation that you don't want. So a little tip there. Let's put that one back up there on the shelf. So that gets through most of our top shelf stuff that's up there. Dropping down, most of these are all bourbons. Actually, they're all bourbons. Yep. Going down the second shelf, however, is mostly scotches. I have scotches from Speyside, Islay, the Highlands, all over the place. And they're they're in categories. I try to group my whiskeys accordingly. On the very end, I've got some Springbank, some Glen Grant, Aberlour, Abunach, and regular Aberlour, McClellan's. All of those are Campbelltown, Tomatin, in different finished casks, ports. Port cask finished scotch is amazing. Then you move on, there's a section kind of in the middle. Ironically, I have McCarthy's pot distilled whiskey. This is American, it's not Scotch, but it is amazing whiskey. If you can find this and you like Scotch, but you can't call this Scotch because it's not made in Scotland, it's made in Oregon. They source their peat, it comes from, it's smoked peat, the barley is, and they make it old-fashioned with smoked peat, the peat bogs, and the barley. They smoke it, they buy it, they make their whiskey single grain, and it is pot distilled. It is amazing. This is 3 years old, but it is as close, it tastes like Scotch. If you closed your eyes, you would think you were drinking a Scotch, but it's American whiskey. So they can't call it Scotch by law. Great product. So I put it with the Scotches. It deserves to be there, I think, because the flavor profile fits naturally. The next chunk I have in here are my Islay Scotches. As y'all know, the Islay Scotches tend to be very peaty, that heavy camphor, the iodine, all those things that you either love it or you hate it. And sometimes it's an acquired taste. It takes a little while to get used to that kind of pungent, ocean, briny whiskey. But sometimes they just perfectly hit the spot. I'm going to have a little sip here before we move on. In my Isleys, actually, I have Ardbeg, I had Lagavulin 8-year, Lagavulin 16-year, Lafroig Select, a Lafroig 18 back there in the back, Glenfarclas, another amazing whiskey. I have a 12-year and then I have a 21-year in the back. Both are amazing whiskeys. The 21 year we don't carry in our state. I actually bought it in Colorado. The wife and I went on a vacation to the Stanley Hotel, and of course we're going to hit some liquor stores. You got to see what the other states have. I stumbled upon that 21 year and I'm like, I have to have it. So I bought it. It is everything that you would expect a 21-year-old Scotch. They are Highland single malt Scotches. So they're sweet, not a lot of peat, just that beautiful combination, a little chocolatey. The Glenfarclas has a tendency to be very chocolatey on the note. You can put it on some ice if you don't want to sip it neat, and the ice kind of brings out a chocolatey note even more. Next to that, front and back shelf is the Glenlivet. I have been a fan of the Glenlivet when I first started branching out into Scotch after buying a book, Tasting Whiskey by Lou Bryson. I started going down the trail of buying scotches and trying different scotches because there is so many scotches that you can try. Islay, Highland, Speyside, that the flavor profiles are all over the board. So it's just a matter of what kind of flavor profile you like and what you want to explore with. But I've got your regular standard Glenlivet 12, Glenlivet 18, the 21. I have a 25 year. It's in a box off to the side. It is opened and I drink it every great once in a while. I think the last time I opened it was Christmas. Our son came to visit and he and I came down the bar and we poured a little toast of the Glenlivet 25, and it is a beautiful composition of whiskey. It's very buttery smooth and everything you'd expect for a $400 bottle of Scotch. Next to that is a Johnny Walker. I did have a blue label, but we finished it. So I'll add another one to the collection one of these days. Behind that, I've got Glenlivet 15, which is another amazing one. And then I've got a Distiller's Edition, Nadura Glenlivet, Founder's Reserve. And then this one back here is a great one. The Glenlivet Nadura non-chill filtered. It's 16 years. It's a natural cask strength, 55.7% alcohol by volume, so it's way up there. It's a high proof, great smooth whiskey, surprisingly, for that high a proof at 16 years. Johnny Walker High Rye, another good one. That's a great one if you like that. Behind the Johnny Walker is one of my favorite scotches in the collection. I'm trying to find another bottle. I can't seem to locate it. Is the Glendronach Allardyce. It's an 18 year. That's the youngest whiskey in that bottle is 18. When you research it, they are putting whiskeys in there that are 25 and 30 years old to get to that flavor profile. It is probably one of the nicest scotches out there. It's not a cheap scotch by any means. You're going to pay about 180 to 200 suggested retail for that bottle. Next to that is the Glendronach 12, another very good whiskey that's moderately priced around 70 or 80. Then we'll put these back. Moving on in the front, the Glenmorangie. I have a pretty decent collection thanks to my wife, and she bought me the Glenmorangie Extremely Rare 18 year. Yes, I have a pretty awesome wife because she's dropped some coin on some hard to get whiskeys over the years for anniversaries or birthdays or Christmases or whatever. She has spent some of her hard-earned money and a fair chunk of it on some of the whiskeys that I have in my collection. So the Glenmorangie 18 years, a very nice one. Glenmorangie is one of the most popular scotches in Scotland. So if the Scots are drinking it, must be pretty good. The common one they drink is the Glenmorangie, the original. I'm going to flip over so we can continue on down that side. So you've got the Glenmorangie Cadbola Estate, or however that's pronounced. It's a 15 year. And these are Highland whiskeys. Next to that is the Port Cask Finish. This one was finished in oak bourbon casks at 15. At 14, the Quinta Reuben is another exquisite, really nice scotch. And then you have the Glenmorangie 12 year. I believe they discontinued the 12 year and went just with the 14. They're port cask finished. Both of them are, the 12 and the 14. So I think Glenmorangie decided, let's just go with an aged product a little more than 12 and make it 14 and discontinue the 12. The two are both very good. There is some differences. If I'm in the mood, sometimes the 12 is a little bit, I like it a little more actually, ironically. So age isn't always better. They're non-chill filtered. This one's non-chill filtered. I think the other one is as well, but it doesn't say so. So they might have changed it up that way when they went from 12 to 14, non-chill filtering it. Let's take a peek and see. I don't really see that if it is. Yeah, so that might have been one of the things they cut back going to the 14. They're not chill filtering it. Behind it, Glengoyne, another great whiskey. That's a 10-year. The Macallan. You're going to pay a premium for Macallans. It doesn't matter where. They're really proud of their product. They should be. It's a really tasty Scotch. This one's a Sherry Oak 12-year. Then I have another 12-year double cask finish back there. If you don't know, this video is going to be a little longer, but you all asked for it, so I figured I'd do it. And then I have this, the plain old Glenmorangie, the original. It's coming in. It's a 10-year Scotch. That is a great Scotch for just sipping. Add a little water to it. It opens it up. Great one. Another gift from the missus. This is the Middleton Very Rare Vintage Release 2017. It's Irish. We're moving into Irish whiskeys now. So I've got mostly Scotches. Then I break into Irish. And then I'll finish. That finishes out the second shelf. So Middleton, there I've got the red spot, the yellow spot, and the green spot. All really, really good Irish whiskeys. The red spot is actually from Ireland. A friend of mine went over there on vacation and he lugged it around the country while he was traveling because we couldn't get the red spot around here. There's a couple more spots I'm trying to get. There's a blue spot that I'm trying to locate. It's kind of hard to find, so keep your fingers crossed. I'll keep hunting for it. Kilbeggan, Irish whiskey. But it's not just regular Irish made with barley. It's made with rye because back in the day, the Irish made a lot of their whiskey predominantly with rye grain instead of barley. This harkens back to the traditional way they used to make it. I tried this from Ian. Shout out to Ian. He's one of the bartenders at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, Estes Park. I was doing a tasting and he brought this over for me to try, and he's like, try this and tell me what you think. It's a rye Irish. And I'm like, that doesn't exist. He goes, yeah, it does. So long story short, I had to find a bottle. It was quite difficult. I found a bottle and bought it, so I added it to the collection. It is an amazing Irish whiskey that's made with rye. So if y'all can get a chance to buy it or find it, I would recommend it. It's very highly recommended by me. Kilbeggan Irish whiskey. It's called a small batch rye. Then going on to the Bushmills. I love Bushmills products. They're always really good and consistent. The Bushmills 16, I think that's my third bottle of it. It is a great whiskey, 16 years, finished with 3 different woods, Oloroso sherry, port wine, I believe, and then bourbon. So Oloroso sherry, bourbon, and port wine. Man, the old memory serves me well. So that is a perfect combination for those 16 years with those different cask iterations to bring out some of the nuances of that. Next to it is the Bushmills 12, Bushmills Black Bush, great one. I drink that quite frequently. It's around 40 bucks, I think. It's a pretty decent one. Down on the end is one that's released recently in the last year or so that we've had it available to us, and that's Bushmills Prohibition Recipe. Non-chill filtered, higher proof. I think it's coming in at 92 proof. If y'all can find that, I would grab it because most of your Irish whiskeys are coming in at 80 proof. This is a 92 proof, non-chill filtered. So the flavor profile is amazing and really, really worth it. That's second or third bottle I've had of that. I don't want to run out. I'm getting low, so I'll probably have to pick up another one. Behind that, back there in the back, y'all can't see it, I have a Redbreast 12, and it's the cask strength edition. I'd like to get just a regular Redbreast. It's a great Irish. It's an old one. It's been around for a long time. Since we're over on this side, we'll drop down to the third shelf. The end here is a little teeny showing, really. It is mostly ryes. I have Kentucky Owl 11 year, batch number, which batch is that? Kentucky Owl 11 years, bottled 07/2017. This is batch number 1, so it's the first batch they've produced. A great rye whiskey. Behind that is Pikesville, another great whiskey. Old Overholt Bottle and Bond. There's 2 Old Overholts, the regular standard release and then the Bottle and Bond. I would recommend the Bottle and Bond over it if you can get it. It's at 100 proof because that's part of the stipulations for Bottle and Bond whiskeys. Cream of Kentucky Bottle and Bond is a Jim Rutledge edition. That's a decent one. I actually bought it by mistake thinking it was the Cream of Kentucky bourbon, and I didn't read it. I was too excited. I didn't read the label as much and realized it was a rye. My bad. Then moving on, I've got my wheaters. All your wheated bourbons. Maker's 101, a great whiskey. It's a wheated whiskey made by Maker's Mark. The 101, I think, complements that wheat in the mash bill better than just the standard release Makers. So it is, in and of itself, a phenomenal whiskey. If you can grab it, I would grab it. Behind there's the cask strength. Then you have the Maker's 46, which is a great whiskey there. I love it. They did change the bottle, and it looks more like this now, or looks like the standard. I have another one a friend of mine got me. It's the Maker's Mark Vets Edition, because I'm a vet. He's a vet, so we kind of stick together. And so he picked that up for me at the commissary on base, and I added it. It's also a very good whiskey. Then the regular Maker's Mark. Moving on next, the Wellers. I do have back here in the back a little teeny bottle before they changed their label. This is Maker's 46. I dipped this one myself in Kentucky at Maker's Mark. I haven't opened it yet. I really should. But they were working on the labels for the 46, and this was just the iteration they were at. Moving on, we've got our wheated Wellers. You know, the Wellers are the same mash bill that the Pappies are. It's made by Buffalo Trace. There's the Craze. I've got the Special Reserve. That's a great one. If you can find it suggested retail, it's around 26 bucks, I think, 25 bucks. Suggested retail, obviously. Then next to it is the Antique 107. It used to be $21.95 back in the day when Josh and I drank copious amounts of it because it was a reasonable whiskey at a good proof and a good flavor profile. Now, suggested retail is 60 bucks. I don't really think it's worth that in my own opinion. It's a $25 bourbon all day long. It's not a $60 bourbon, but that's just my opinion. Moving on, next to that is the Weller 12. Virtually impossible to get unless you win a lottery or you do like I did. It is my favorite bourbon. Of all my whiskeys, the Weller 12 is my favorite. That is my island whiskey, I've said, and people have asked me if I was stuck on an island. That would be the whiskey of choice because I just enjoy the flavor profile after it opens up a little bit and it oxidizes. It's just perfect vanillas, caramels, all the blends. It is, for me, a perfect whiskey. These, however, are normally suggested retail. They're about 40 bucks, 42 bucks. Can't get them. I was running out of my old bottle, so we went on a trip to California, and I ended up buying those bottles, not at suggested retail. I think I paid $2.25 a bottle, but I'm on vacation, and that's my favorite whiskey, and I'll be damned if I'm going to run out of it. So, he did come down a little bit. He was asking $300 each for them. I got him to come down to $225. That's still highway robbery, but it is what it is. I wanted them, so I'm on vacation. Moving on, in the back there, Old Fitzgerald, just the regular iteration at 80 proof. That's a wheater as well. Dropping down in the front, Buffalo Trace, Wild Turkey 101, of course. That's always a staple in the bar. Larceny Barrel Proof is actually up on the top. And then I have regular Larceny. Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel, great bourbon. That is just amazing. I had that last night with a little bit of Ale 8, actually, soda, and it complemented it perfectly. So a ginger soda with that was perfect. Behind it is the small batch barrel proof. Got that at the distillery a couple years ago. And then I've got Four Roses small batch, and then small batch select. non-chill filtered. That's a great one. Then the regular bottom shelf Four Roses, and then Four Roses single barrel. Moving on, next is High West Distillery, a Midwinter's Night Dram. That one was a gift from one of our amazing subscribers. Thank you very much for that, and I've been enjoying that. Usually around Christmas time I try to have a pour of that. High West Distillery, the Boo Rye. Can't get that anywhere but Utah, and the wife and I went down there to Park City for vacation. I picked up a couple bottles, one for me and one for Josh, of course. That is a great whiskey. High West makes some amazing stuff. And then their Campfire, little peat, little Scotch kind of pick in there, smokiness to it. It's kind of unique. And then their High West Bourbon. Behind the High West products, I've got a Wild Turkey 13-year that's from Japan. A friend of mine was over there, a military buddy of mine, and he said, hey, what do you want me to grab? I said, dude, I'd love to have that 13-year Wild Turkey. You can't get that in the States. It's a special release over there for what those folks enjoy. And then Michter's is next to that. Then next to the Michter's is a distillery pick only. Evan Williams 12-year. It's 101 proof. Pretty decent bourbon. Not cheap. They're pretty proud of it. But it is a decent one. It's about 135, I think, is what they're charging a bottle. Of course, Angel's Envy. There's so many bottles, I have to turn it sideways to make it fit. The Angel's Envy is always a staple in the bar. I would recommend you have it. It is just an easy sipper. Behind that is Blade and Bow. Decent bourbon. That's coming out of the old Stitzel-Weller distillery. Actually, Bullet owns it now, so that's a decent one. The Old Forester lineup, 1920, 1870, 1910, 1897. All great bourbons, all solid bourbons. Different proofs. They range from anywhere from 115, 90, 93, and 100 proof. So some of those are pretty hot. Behind that is actually a lottery win. It's a Parker's Heritage barrel finished, and this one particular bottle is finished in orange Curaçao barrels. Not one of my favorites, surprisingly. It tasted kind of fake orange flavoring. I might revisit it here in a little while. Moving on back, I've got Old Grandad, Russell's Reserve 10-year. Old Grandad 114 proof. Smooth Ambler Contradiction, another gift from the missus. She was traveling in another state for work and she found this and grabbed it. That's a decent whiskey. Stranahan's Sherry Cask in the regular. Trail's End, and Fighting Cock bourbon back there in the back. That wraps out the three shelves. If y'all could see the camera and I could pan it around, I have another shelf over here with Henry McKenna on it, Buffalo Trace Bourbon Cream. Then behind the camera, I have another shelf full of whiskeys, all kinds, Jefferson's Ocean, Evan Williams, Thomas More, Jameson, Evan Williams Single Barrel, Balatin Bourbon Ball stuff. Down on the side, I've got Benchmark Single Barrel, Buffalo Trace White Dog on the very bottom shelf I have down here. I've got some brandies that are finished in different areas, some Canadian whiskeys back in the corner, Canadian Club, different iterations, 6-year, 12-year, a Canadian Club 12-year, which has been amazing. Castle and Key. I've got some stuff down here like Castle and Key. That's their bourbon whiskey that Josh picked up on a trip back to Tennessee. He grabbed this one for me and one for him. Decent whiskey. Early Times Bottle and Bond, another great one. Rittenhouse Rye, which is always in the bar. I'm always going to have Rittenhouse Rye because it's such a great staple cocktail. It is a Bottle and Bond, 100 proof. Great cocktail mixer. Along with Evan Williams Bottle and Bond, that's another good one. Some blackened whiskey we've bought just to try it out. Burnside bourbons, they're pretty decent. When I'm done with them, I probably wouldn't replace them. Woodinville, another decent whiskey that's out there. Woodinville whiskeys, Jim Beam Honey, some Jim Beam Choice, Castle and Key vodkas and gins. I do have some tequilas as well. A lot of y'all have asked. I have this amazing plaque that's usually hanging up here behind Josh and I. This is an amazing gift from one of our subscribers, BJ. He sent this to me in 2020, made it on his CNC machine. He has a company, a woodworking company and all sorts of stuff. So he sent this to us, and I try to hang it and display it proudly in most of our videos. He's out of Columbus, Ohio. Thank you again, BJ, for this. It is such an amazing gift. And he did it in the colors of the bar with the flag because I'm a veteran, and with our catchphrase, any way you like. So I really appreciate the subscribers we have out there. They're amazing people. They just don't get any better. That about wraps up our whiskey collection here that I have. I have some extras. You know, I try to collect the ones that I enjoy a lot. I have a few bottles of Blanton's, a few bottles of Eagle Rare because I drink them quite frequently and I enjoy them, so I don't like to run out. So every time I find one, I try to grab it. So I have back stock. And that's what you should do. Just don't hoard hundreds of them. But when you enjoy something, you don't want to run out. That's absolutely true. I hope you all have enjoyed this particular what's behind the bar, what's around the bar. I got stuff out in the shop. There's a lot. I do have some Japanese whiskeys, Nika, some rums, Kirk and Sweeney, 18, 12, and 23. So there's a variety, but mostly all whiskeys here in the bar. Hope you have enjoyed what's behind the bar here with Durbins Bourbon. Remember, as always, enjoy your whiskeys and bourbons any way you like. Cheers, everybody.